Travel into the Suncoast is taking off at unprecedented levels. We'll talk to CEOs at two of the busiest airports in our region, right now on the Suzanne Atwell Show. Hello and welcome to the Suzanne Atwell Show. I'm Suzanne Atwell. Our focus this episode, airline travel. Driven by population growth and tourism, flights into and out of Sarasota, Bradenton have increased exponentially. But it's not just here on the Suncoast. The entire state of Florida is booming. The state of Florida is one of the busiest destinations in the country, ranked second in most planes boarded in 2015. There are 20 primary commercial airports operating here. Florida is the only state in the country that has 4 large hub airports. In 2018, these 4 hubs alone served over 150 million commercial airline passengers. Sarasota Bradenton International Airport had over 1.3 million passengers last year. 8 major airlines operate out of SRQ. Year to date, passenger traffic as of March was up over 36%. In the past 12 months, they added 2 new air carriers, Allegiant Air and Frontier Airlines, 23 new routes, and 18 destinations. And just down the road, at Punta Gorda Airport, it's a similar story. 3 consecutive years of record growth in 2018. They edged out SRQ for total passengers with nearly 1.5 million. The economic impact of the airline industry on the state and the region is critical. Jobs, tourism, international trade are just part of this rapidly expanding business sector. According to the Florida Airports Council, the Sunshine State is ranked number 1 in international air cargo. And to put that in perspective, 2/3 of all perishables and 90% of all flowers imported in the U.S. come through Florida first. In 2017, according to the Florida Department of Transportation, the combined statewide economic impact of commercial service, general aviation, and air cargo was $144 billion and 1.3 million jobs. While this is all very good news, it puts a tremendous amount of pressure on the leadership of our local aviation community. And no one knows that better than Rick Piccolo, the president and CEO at Sarasota Bradenton International Airport.
One of the things I always try to get through to people is that we don't have any local taxing power. We don't take a penny from the community. I think you might have seen that our economic impact, our annual economic impact on the community is $1.33 billion a year. So we give you $1.33 billion a year of economic impact without taking a dime out of your pocket as a taxpayer. And I don't think there's another government agency that can say they give you that kind of value for $0. So we make our money on our business operation.
Now the headline, growth.
Yes.
The city's booming, the 2 counties are growing rapidly. The number of flights you are providing has grown exponentially. So who are all these people? Where are they coming from and where are they going?
Actually, we had these people for a long time. They were just going out of another airport. We were bleeding about 65% of our traffic to Tampa International. So you had about 1.7 million of passengers that were flying out of Tampa whose final destination or origination point was here in Sarasota, Bradenton. So we're slowly clawing back some of that, not to mention the fact that just, as you said, the community is growing tremendously. When we go off to see airlines, we give them a lot of demographic information, and actually the Sarasota and Manatee County area has grown by 20,000 residents a year for the last 5 years running. Now that's a small city being created every year. And airlines are finally realizing that, that kind of growth here, and also as you've seen the congestion on the roads, especially I-75, airlines tend to look at distance not in miles, but in time. And I remember years ago we went off to see Southwest Airlines, and actually the distance between Sarasota, Bradenton, and Tampa is about the same as between Fort Lauderdale and West Palm Beach. And Southwest was at both those locations, and they said, yeah, well, there it takes at least 90 minutes to travel between those two destinations, and you didn't have that kind of time issue here. But it's slowly getting to that, especially in season. I-75 becomes a parking lot.
Sure.
So
do you need another runway? Is that in your future?
No, it's not in the future for a number of reasons.
Okay.
One, I don't think we need it from a capacity standpoint, but secondly, we don't have the footprint here to do that. Third, the environmental issues would be tremendous, and then the legal issues would spend 30 years in court anyway. So it's just not worth it. The public made a decision back in the 80s, as I understand it, of where they wanted the airport. They wanted it to remain here, and that's where it'll be. If ever things get to the point where the capacity is so constrained that they need a bigger airport, they'll probably just build a second airport. But I don't know where they'll build it by then because everything's kind of built out. So.
Okay, now we're going to talk safety and security. Is SRQ International a TSA facility?
No, it's not. Now, it is in the sense that TSA still oversees every airport in the United States. And they regulate what goes on here the same as at any other airport. But we elected about 5 years ago to go into what's called SPP, Screening Partnership Program, where a private contractor is selected by TSA, is regulated by TSA, their contract is with TSA, but it is a private provider, Trinity Technologies, and they do the security screening and the luggage screening under the supervision of TSA. But,
I see.
Therefore, when the shutdown came, actually, it had no effect on us from the standpoint of here locally, because those were private employees that were being paid by the private employer, not I think the funding sent out on a quarterly basis, so they were kind of insulated for the time being from that shutdown. Now, it had an effect in the sense that other airports that were TSA federal screeners, where they had fewer and fewer screeners, then some flights might get canceled that were coming in here, but there wasn't any direct effect here at SRQ.
Past few years, how have you ramped up security?
Actually, we spent a lot of time on security. Over the last 15 years, since 9/11, we've probably spent $15 to $20 million on security equipment, and we've changed a lot of our protocols. One of the things that we changed about 1.5 years ago, and it's difficult because the security threats keep evolving. The earlier threats were more terrorism, bombs, and you adjust to that. Now you have the active shooter phenomenon, which is another one. So what we did about 1.5 years ago is we went to what we call tactical officer. We bought more long guns. We have one officer during the heavy periods that is always equipped with a long gun and bulletproof vest and all that. And the reason is the studies have shown the sooner you interdict with the active shooter, the sooner you bring it to a conclusion. Now, we have long guns strategically deployed throughout the airport, but we didn't want all the officers in the shooting incident running to the guns instead of toward the shooters. So we have some officers that will be running to get the long guns, but we have a tactical officer that will be going to engage the shooter with the same level of firepower. So they'll have a long gun, and they can engage it, and if nothing else, keep that shooter occupied until the backup shows up from the other officers. So we changed our whole philosophy on that.
Absolutely.
Well, we also added bollards in front of all the doors so that you can't drive in with a bomb. We added a special film on the glass because in the Brussels bombing, a lot of people were hurt not by the bomb itself but by flying glass. So we have a film on the glass that should there be a bomb incident, it'll break but it won't go flying. So we continuously look at security issues, and we spend a lot of money, private money in the sense that it's our revenue, on security. Our payroll for public safety, we have our own police, our own fire department, it's about $3.3 million a year.
Tell me about the physical plant, the buildings, the road, the radar, the control tower, the restaurants, all that type of thing, work on entrance and exits. How has that all evolved over the past few years, actually?
Oh, God, we remodeled the entire terminal over the last 4 years, between 2012 2016. We just added 13 brand new jet bridges. That was a cost of $13 million. We spent $25 million on the terminal renovation. We redid the curbside and for $5 million. We did the gateway entrance for $1 million. We did shade parking and covered the rental car areas for about $6 million. We built a new air traffic control tower for $27 million. So over the last 15 years, we've invested about $300 million in this facility. Again, without charging the local taxpayer a dollar, On top of that, we retired our debt from when they first built this terminal. That was about $150 million when you factor in the interest, plus invested $300 million. So almost $500 million over the last 15 to 20 years into this terminal without borrowing a dime. We're one of the few airports in this country that's totally debt-free. We don't owe anybody a dime. We've got about $23 million in the bank. We have a physical plant that's in great shape. We replaced the roof. We redid the entire interior. We put all LED lighting on the airfield, in the parking lot, on the roadways, in the terminal. We put in new what's called magnetic bearing chillers, which are a new technology that don't use oil. They're 25% more efficient. We took our electric bill from about $1.1 million a year to $600,000 a year, just through putting energy efficient equipment in that pays for itself. This isn't, you know, I know a lot of people talk about putting solar at airports, but it doesn't pay for itself. The only way it pays for itself is you get a tax credit. We're government, so we don't get tax credits. But all these other investments we made have a good return on investment.
Wow. I read somewhere that the Florida House and Senate passed a bill to spend $3 million to establish a training school for aeronautical mechanics.
We worked with Manatee Technical College and Elite Airways this past session, and with our elected representatives, Senator Galvano, Senator Gruters were great in this, James Buchanan in the House was carrying the weight there. They all did a great job. We asked for $5 million, we got $3 million. We want to build two 25,000 square foot hangars, one for Manatee Technical College to start an A&P school, and then Elite Airways for a maintenance center. And that gives a pipeline to jobs right from the school right next door to an airline maintenance. And so we're working with them. We're going to try and make this $3 million work, maybe throw some airport money in and look at some other funding sources, try and build these two things. And A&P, there's a lot of shortage of A&P mechanics. And over the next 30 years, I think the projection is there'll be a need for 725,000 new A&P and pilots. So we're working with Manatee Technical College. Those jobs start at about $62,000 a year. So we're trying to create something that provides long-term benefit for the student, for the community, and economic development for the community. And the other benefit of it is when an airline locates a maintenance center there, they don't bring planes in empty. They start flying more routes and deadhead at night to have the maintenance done on the aircraft. So it has a great benefit all the way across. Especially from the educational and keeping our kids here in the community and wanting to work here.
Wonderful. A lot has happened at this airport in the last 5 years. How do you look at the next 5 years or 10 years? You've done so much in a short period of time, so what's next over the horizon?
There's a couple things. We actually start our master plan this year, update of our master plan that's 10 years old. I think one of the things we'll be looking at is certainly the growth at 40% can't continue. But I think we'll see significant growth over the next couple of years, maybe in double-digit range, maybe 10%, 8% or whatever, over the next couple of years. So we'll have to look at when will there be a triggering point that we might need another wing on the terminal. You might notice that it's airside B is the center one. That's because the old master plan has an A and a C at each end as well. So when does that get triggered, and how much is that going to cost? But right now our main concentration is on developing what we call our outparcel holdings. We have 2 industrial park holdings, one across on Old 15th Street, it's about 55 acres. We own 76 acres on Talavas near 301. We have a bunch of area here in the front along University that we want to convert where the car rentals are now. We want to consolidate that and build offices and restaurants and more hotel space and that type of thing along there. All of this pays revenue to the airport, which keeps us self-sufficient and off the tax rolls of asking the taxpayer for money, and all of it creates jobs and economic activity. As I said, you know, you can take the Orioles, Pirates, Braves, Nathan Benderson Park, and the Arts, and combine all those, and there's still hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars behind us in economic impact on the community, and we don't use any tax dollars for it. So. We're real proud of that. We concentrate a lot on how we affect the community as an economic engine. And if we can develop all these other properties, we have 92 acres in the infield. That's why we spent $27 million on a new tower. So now we can develop that, maybe bring a air cargo facility here or a major maintenance center, again for a major airline, good jobs, lots of activity, lots of economic activity. So all those things benefit the community and benefit the airport's finances as well. keeps us very stable, and it's not related to airline activity, because a lot of our business activity now, if airline service goes up, our parking revenues go up, our rental car revenues go up, food and beverage revenues go up. But if airline service goes down, then all those goes down. So with these other activities, they're not dependent on airline service, and that gives us more financial flexibility. When I came here in '95, we would drive about $200,000 a year in non-airline related revenue. Today it's at about $2 million.
SRQ is managed and operated by the Sarasota Manatee Airport Authority, a public agency which was created by the state of Florida. The board is comprised of 6 members who are appointed by the governor. The current chairman is Dr. Peter Wish.
The board itself is comprised of 3 people from Manatee County and 3 people from Sarasota County who are commissioners of the Airport Authority. The Airport Authority actually owns the airport. So we're the governing board that sits over staff. What we have to do is to make sure that the public's money is being well spent.
Who's your primary competition?
Well, of course, we've always had difficulty attracting airlines because we're wedged in between 2 major airports, Tampa International and Fort Myers. So people have always been reluctant to come to Sarasota because number one, we didn't have the nonstop routes that we have now. And number 2, we weren't as price competitive because they could offer more tickets and therefore more of a discount on those tickets. Now that we have more airlines, we're catching up and our rates are much more competitive than they were before. There was also the myth that people had that our landing fees were higher here, and that's why our ticket prices were. Well, actually, our landing fees are lower than either Fort Myers or Tampa. So we're very competitive now in this market.
We're having a great run right now. What is it going to look like in 5-10 years?
It's a very good question. We're always going to be a boutique airport. And what we want is to offer service. We may be a touch higher in some of our ticket prices, but we have the added convenience that people wouldn't get somewhere else. We have the facility, and now we have those nonstop flights.
While SRQ board members like Dr. Wish are political appointees, Punta Gorda Airport is managed by the Charlotte County Airport Authority, which is comprised of 5 elected commissioners. Among other things, the commissioners appoint a president CEO who runs the day-to-day operations, and his name, James Parrish.
Well, I think I look at things a little bit differently than most airport directors. I'm not from operations. I'm, own my own company, very entrepreneurial. So we looked at different opportunities, things that a lot of airports were afraid of. We have a very different model than the airports surrounding us, and we knew we had to be different. You know, that if you're not different, why fly here? There's 2 great airports north and south of us, and we realized that. So the competition was there. We knew we had to offer the airlines a different opportunity at Punta Gorda, and we did that with our model.
Absolutely. So let me ask you this, in terms of income, what's the profile of your customer, basically the target audience, where they come from, where are they going?
You know, we fly to 40 some odd cities, 41 to 45 depending on the time of year. The Allegiant passenger is not a savvy traveler. They're a traveler that travels once or twice a year. They're average passenger. We have passengers that fly out of here every weekend from Punta Gorda to go to their house in the Carolinas or the Tennessee. But the average person travels once or twice a year. As Allegiant said, their option is the couch, not the car, not another airline. So they're a different type of traveler. But we also have industrial park tenants, T-hangar tenants, and they're retirees, business people that have their planes based here. So it's a very diverse group of people. But the biggest change has been Allegiant and the commercial air service, and that has brought a lot of additional people to the community.
Let's talk now about safety and security. During the government shutdown, what happened with your security? Are you a TSA airport?
We're not. We're similar to Sarasota. We opted out of TSA and are privatized. We didn't have some of the troubles. All of our agents still got paid because they were a part of a private company. So we didn't have some of those issues. We do have issues, like every airport, as we grow faster than the national average. Getting TSA to modify contracts with the contractor that does it to add more screeners has always been a struggle. We work with them a year in advance to make sure we'll have enough people. We've added screening lanes, we've added bag screening equipment.
So capacity, costs, earlier this year, did that have any impact on your security in general?
No, not really. We knew something was going to happen. We worked with our screening company to make sure they had enough people on staff. We actually supplement our staff to help guide people through the process at the beginning of the lane and at the end of the lane when we have peak times. So it really didn't affect us much. I know other airports were terribly affected.
Well, with growing passengers, and you as we saw, there are quite a few passengers, and how do you, mitigate that? Because that is a concern of theirs.
Well, what we've done is, like I said, added a 5th screening lane. We've added, as we increase the terminal size, we added significant queues, so there's more room for passengers to get in line. But the biggest change for us is we've worked with Allegiant to put a porter out front to make sure people get in the right line. People tend to get in the line they see, and we have a lot of passengers stand for 20 minutes in a line that they didn't need to be in. So capturing them at the door, making sure the documentation's right, and getting them in the right line has been one of the biggest changes for us that has really alleviated a lot of our congestion.
Well, that's wonderful to have someone to look for, a porter. That's sort of a blast from the past kind of thing that you see. And also, when you board planes here, you board from outside, which is, again, kind of
the way it used to be.
The way it used to be.
So we decided at the beginning that we couldn't afford jet bridges, and if it rains, one of our past presidents of an airline that was asked the question, what do you do when it rains? And he says, you board faster. We do have umbrellas, we do have, we have covered walkways to the aircraft. But the loading bridges, ground loading bridges work well, they're fast. We board from the front and the back of the aircraft, the plane from the front and the back.
Well, it's kind of a salute to the past, and some people I would assume would like that.
You see people coming from Ohio in January, and they get off the plane and they look at the sky and the blue sky and the sun, and they're so excited to take that jacket off and get to Florida.
So now tell me about your physical plant, the buildings, the roads, control tower, all that.
Well, so I was brought in to help rebuild the airport, and my boss at the time said, hey, Jimmy, we're going to bring in a commercial airline service. And I said, we have a few problems. We don't have a tower, we don't have a terminal, we don't have a parking lot. So he said, you build all those things, I'll worry about the airline. So we got on board. We started building a small 16,000 square foot terminal that 2 years ago we expanded to 60,000 square feet. We built a $4 million control tower, a 135-foot control tower with our partners at the FDOT. We had to build parking lots, we had to build access roads, and it's constantly evolving. We'll be adding a 4th lane to our curbside. Over the next year, we'll be adding a 3rd lane in and out of the airport over the next year. Right. Some of our bigger projects, we're going to change the General Aviation Center, a location. We're moving that to the north side of the airport to get it away from the congestion of commercial aviation. That'll be a new $3 million building, parking lot with associated ramp, taxiways. Total project's about $16 million. And with that, we're looking to expand general aviation and industrial aviation, the MRO, the avionics shops in that area. So we have some current tenants that want to move there, some new tenants that are looking to lease land and build there. So there's a lot of great opportunities. The things we're blessed with is almost 2,000 acres of land. So we have a lot of growth potential. 2,000 acres, we bought 70 acres adjacent to I-75 a few years ago. So we're looking at expanding. There's an industrial manufacturer that wants to go on a part of that parcel. We should have a lease with him next month. So there's a lot of great opportunities here. That's one of the things I really liked about this airport when I considered coming here. We're right between 2 exits on I-75, have great access, two, like I said, 2 exits, 4-lane road connecting them. We're 5 minutes from I-75.
Very easy to get to. You see the signs long before you have to get off.
Easy access. That's one of the things we try and sell to the airlines. Your customer can get from his house to here much quicker than most airports. There's no traffic. There's one stoplight from I-75 to the airport.
Sure.
So.
Okay, big picture. What do you see as the primary challenge or the primary challengers in the future?
I think our first challenge is keeping up with growth. We have grown faster than the national average for almost 6 years now, and when I say faster, I think national average is 2 to 5%. We've been growing at 30% a year. You'll see us slow down a little, but with Allegiant building their new resort facility here in Punta Gorda, I think we'll continue to grow. So we'll have to. That's our number one challenge. General aviation is growing. We have 80 people on a wait list for T-hangars, so we're looking at the additional opportunity to build more hangars for them. And then just keeping up with the industrial growth in Florida. Hopefully the economy will stay in the positive thing and we can continue to lease land and bring more jobs to the community.
Allegiant Airlines is your sole carrier. Do you have concerns about that is your sole carrier? Do you have ideas about who will come next? What other airlines?
Every day. I wish we had 5. I wish I had something to fall back on if there's a pilot strike or anything that could happen in the airline business. We're constantly marketing to other airlines.
What is the process that you have to go through to acquire another airline?
It's all relationship. We meet with them. We continue to meet with them. We meet with the majors. We meet with the ultra low-cost carriers constantly and build that relationship. But when the new airlines come, when Direct Air came to us, it was literally 3 or 4 weeks from the time they talked to us to the time they were flying here. So you always have to be ready. And that's why we overbuilt a little, but we have 23 ticket counters, 7 gates. Allegiant uses every one of those in the morning, but we have the opportunity to sneak somebody in if we have to. But it's just a continual process. But once they say go, it's all hands on deck to get things ready for them.
So you look ahead 3 to 5 years. How much can you do in the 3 to 5 years? That's not a long period of time. As this is growing, as you're getting more popular, people have said to me the hue and cry of any airline. Give me an airline wherever I want to go and make it cheap. Well, that's all I want.
And that's the customer. That's who we're trying to pitch to the other airlines. This is what we are. We know we're a niche. We don't have a crown room for Delta. We're never going to be that.
Right.
We are an ultra low cost airport for an ultra low cost carrier. And that's our pitch. And we're going to ground board until an airline says, I have to have a jet bridge. Then I can build a jet bridge. We have the access to put one in, similar to St. Pete. I think for us, it's staying in our niche is our biggest challenge. We need to continue to grow, but grow smart economically so we can maintain our model. Because if we're $5, $7 an enplanement, there's 2 airports north and south of us that would love to have all of our traffic.
Right. Both the Charlotte County Airport Authority and the Sarasota Manatee Airport Authority hold monthly meetings which are open to the public and subject to state sunshine laws. For more details, you can go to the airport websites, flypgd.com or srq-airport.com. And you can always watch this episode and all our shows on my website, SuzanneAtwell.org, as well as my Facebook and YouTube pages. Well, that wraps up another one. We hope you enjoyed the show and learned something. Don't forget to like us on Facebook and share with your friends. Until next time, I'm Suzanne Atwell, and we'll see you around town.